Hello and welcome to another edition of Syntakt Sound Design Secrets. Today's video is a bit different because we are going to do a little breakdown of a pattern I made that it has techniques and elements from all the previous videos. And also there's going to be a little Ableton section involved because this is running through some effects, mostly compression and EQ, to make it sound a bit nicer. But we'll get to that later. So you're listening to the pattern right now. It's 8 bars in total before it loops again. There's a couple of things running at a lower speed, and there's some trick conditions that only go 1 out of 8 times. Anyway, let's go through the whole thing, right? There's 7 sounds in total. And they are all made with BD Modern, because I had the idea of maybe I should try and make an EP. A couple of tunes just using BD Modern. I don't know why BD Modern. That is because it's just the first machine on the Syntakt, I guess. And I remember while exploring it before, there was you can get some nice things out of it. And also when we did the first Syntakt Sound Design Secrets, it started with the BD Modern, and then removing the sweep, you could just make some really nice melodic sounds with it. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something in there. So I thought, okay, just make everything with BD Modern and see where we end up, right? So one of the patterns that came out of that is the one you just heard. And now I'm just going to mute everything except the kick and then build it back up. So this is the kick drum. It's basically just a very short kick drum, no special things really. This step here is more of a longer and lower 808-ish boom, I guess. And then this step is more of a higher, sort of almost percussive note. Also, you can see I high pass that a bit, and it's going through the send effects. Now, an important thing about this whole thing is that I have this sequence going on in the effects track, which is basically I'm either sequencing reverb time or delay time and delay feedback. So you have this constant texture in the background, which really does help to sort of I don't know, make your sound a bit more richer. And then I have a multi-mode filter engaged and an LFO that's modulating a filter pan. And if you then go to the routing setup, only the delay and reverb are basically going through the effects track. There's another track that's going through there, which is basically the pad sound. But the most important thing here is that only reverb and delay are being modulated or affected by the effects track. Also quite a bit of drive to crunch it up a bit. Now, when I'm... let's add this second track. So this is just a very simple like melodic sound, you know. I've changed a bit to like the S mod and the square mod and the triangle mod, but it's sort of like a square wave sound, right? The big thing about this is that actually it's triggering track 3 and 4 as well. So it's basically just creating a chord. So if I now turn on track 3, for instance, now track 3 being triggered by track 2 by no, there's also sometimes when I stop this the delay starts going haywire. So it's being triggered by track 2, track 3, but also it has some tricks of its own, which actually only trigger every 2 or 4 times, which actually overrides the trigger from the second track. I added some lock tricks as well, which actually changed the filter settings of this third track. So every now and then, so actually every 2 out of 2 times, or 4 out of 4 times, the filter opens on this third track. Now, if I also add track 4, you can hear the full chord. And same here, I have actually only one lock trick here that changes the filter, and also it only triggers every 4 times. And some other notes that are a bit more sparse, and actually those only trigger 1 out of 8 and 8 out of 8 times. Which adds a bit of variation. All right, let's add our hi-hat. So, if you're listening carefully, you can hear that, you know, some of these sounds have like on certain steps are being sent to reverb or delay, and because on the effects track, you know, those reverb and delay times are constantly modulating. Get this, you know, the sort of like the texture in the background gets ever more complex and more elaborate, which is really nice. Let's see. I mean, this is just you know, the regular how to make a hi-hat trick. It's just FM'd by an LFO at a very high speed. And then there's also a random LFO going to the pan, so we have a bit of stereo going on, which is really nice. And then the actual sound itself, I mean, I actually added a bit of sweep to this, so you have a bit of this fluttery sound. So it's not as much of a hi-hat. Well, it is on some steps, but... And this one is actually 4 bars long. So there's a bit more going on at the end here. But it's a bit of the whistly flutter and then some like more normal hi-hat sounds, which... let's see if I... It's basically just the change, the difference in pitch that makes the actual difference in the sound. I thought I changed the sweep as well, but no. All right, let's go to our sixth sound. Let's mute the rest for a second, or maybe leave only the kick. So as you can hear, we have these sounds. And they're basically just a copy of the hi-hat sound, I think, but modulated in a different way. So I'm having this sort of like FME, Scarwave FM. It's kind of slow. Not slow, but you know, it's not as fast as 2K. And it has a ramp up. And then the other one is a bit slow, a lot slower actually. And it has a ramp down. So you get this sort of like crunchy sound effect. And I'm just changing LFO speeds really to add some variation and some pitch, I think, as well, or not really. No, it's just trick conditions. So this one plays the first time, and then this one plays the second time, and it's like a 4-bar loop, so this is also 8 bars long. And then these are also panned center, and that one's panned to the left. And then we have our final track. Which is basically just some kind of pad. Just has a bit of vibrato going on. And then I'm also modulating the triangle mod. But the nice thing about this is that it's also going through the effects track. So it gets a bit of that wobble from the filter pan modulation that was only beholden to the delay and reverb before. And it really gives it this sort of like almost lo-fi-ish sound, which I thought, you know, fit the whole thing quite nicely. And then actually, it's only 7 tracks.
Only 7 tracks.
Actually, it is 8 tracks. I'm an idiot. There's another track, which is a snare drum. Which basically is doing the how to make a clap trick from a couple of videos ago. So it's modulating the amp volume, and also it's being FM'd. So it's basically just a noise sound. So you get this sort of like noisy snare clap sound, and then I have a couple of P-locks where I lower the speed of the LFO, so you get more like the wobble sound. There you go. So it's all in all not, you know, not too complex, but it fits. You know, it fits the pattern nicely. So And then, of course, the output of this is going into Ableton, where it's going through a bit of EQ and compression, which I'll probably start talking about now. Right, Ableton me here. I just want to quickly run you through my end of chain. Just a bit of a history, because I recently wanted to finish some Syntakt music through Overbridge in Ableton Live, and I did some multi-tracking, and I'm just really having a really hard time translating what comes out of the Syntakt, like the stereo mix, the summing, the effects track, sound effects, whatever. That's all, nicely tweaked to a T. And then basically starting over in Overbridge or in Ableton, because I have to rebuild the whole mix. And I have more control, but I'm just really struggling to capture the same feel. And while it might sound objectively better, I just find that it kind of squeezes all the life out of it. With that said, I kind of decided to just not do that anymore, and just try doing the best I can with stereo mix. I mean, this might change with Outbox 8 coming out soon, but for now. And maybe, I'm not like limiting myself to like stereo out, that's it. I can still record, different takes or different mute states, whatever, and then arrange it in Ableton. But with that being said, I obviously need something at the end to make it sound a bit more polished. And that's just what I want to show you here. And it's really very simple. Over here I have, let me drop the volume a bit. Over here I have the Curves EQ, which is a EQ by Mono, developer of excellent Max for Live devices. It's basically their version of a Pultec EQ, which is a really nice sort of like passive EQ. And it has the famous Pultec trick where you can boost and cut the same frequency at the same time, and it really gets this. You get this really nice sort of like low end bump that sounds really nice. But other than that, I just boost the input a bit. I have set it to vintage mode, so you get a bit more harmonic distortion, and then cut a bit of the mid to make it a bit less boxy, and then add a bit of high end sparkle. Just a really nice and easy to use EQ. You can definitely hear the difference. It's a bit more muffled when it's off, and you have a bit more shine when it's on. Then I have the Steve Duda Classic, the OTT. I like this one better than the Ableton one, just because it's easier to set up, I think. Because all I really do here is just pull down the depth and time a bit. And in this case, lower the effect it has on the high frequencies a bit. But that's about it. Otherwise, I don't really touch anything. And then I just have an Ableton limiter that I've set to maximize, and then just pull down the threshold a bit to get a bit more volume. And that's it really. I mean, I might add a bit more surgical EQ if needed, but then I just use like a stock Ableton EQ, to get rid of some frequencies if I really need it. Yeah, but that's about it. So yeah, this is my very simple end of chain to make things sound a bit better out of the box. All right, thank you, Ableton man. So let's maybe do some Control-Alt jamming, right? And see what happens. So, a really nice thing is, once you start opening up the filter bit, you're also pushing like more high frequencies into like descent effects, which then, you know, get the effects track picks up more of that. So those textures also, you know, get a bit richer that way, which is really nice. So yeah, I hope this was enjoyable, informative, and that you learned something. And let me know if I should do more videos like these, where it's more of a breakdown instead of creating something from scratch. Because I think if I'm able to spend a bit more time like on the pattern and you know, go through some iterations and everything, it gets a lot more refined really, instead of having to, you know, come up with stuff on the spot in half an hour or whatever. You'll get a bit more of an idea when I do like a breakdown afterwards, where the nuances are, right? And where the little things are that make things a bit more interesting. Actually, if we listen to this again, and I'm going to switch to a different pattern now. So let's listen for a bit. This is basically the same pattern. And as you can hear, it's a bit more brighter. It has some more punch in the kick, and the hi-hat is a bit more boring, I guess. The pad is not as interesting. The idea was that I wanted to make a variation on this one, which was a bit softer and changing things around. And then when I listened to that, I was actually, I like this version way better as like the main pattern. I basically discarded the other pattern as like, you know, being part of the track, because I like this a lot more. And because it's a bit softer, I could just easily add a bit more nuance and like trick conditioned changes that made it a bit more interesting. And I still might, you know, develop this a bit more into something that has multiple sections. But I also think that, you know, I can definitely just jam this out with a bit of muting and stuff and make an interesting little track out of it, which then could be part of the BD Modern EP thing that I was talking about. Last thing, I think, and this is another pattern from that same, you know, idea or different idea, but it's still only BD Modern sounds. And it's just a nice melodic idea, missing a bit of like percussion and stuff. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this. Hope that was interesting. Again, let me know if you want to see more of this, like pattern or track breakdowns. Just let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.